What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Wisconsin Sportsman podcast, which is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear. I'm your host, Pierce Nellis, and this is your home for all things hunting, fishing, and conservation in the Badger State. Folks, Happy New Year. I hope you're all doing well. I hope the antlerless season, if you were partaking in that, went well for you. I hope it was I hope it went more smoothly than mine did, or at least my last hunt did, because that was a bit of a goat rodeo, which we might dive into in this conversation here. But on the note of the antlerless hunt, I have a diehard antlerless hunter and just all around outdoorsman. I've got Matthew Jefko on the line. Matt, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fabulously. How are you?
Excellent, man. Excellent. Let's start right there. How did your antlerless season play out for you?
Better than I could have expected. I shot 3 doe on 3 different days. And so that was awesome. So I can go through it. I guess on the 28th, I went out to some public land near my place in Middleton, and it is a heavily trafficked area. But the weather was a little bit nasty that day. It was like raining. And so there was nobody out there. It's just a large cornfield that is bordered by $1 million homes and the Ice Age Trail. And there's just a small section of like public hunting. It is obviously a rented out cornfield. I don't know who harvests there, but the deer are out there 6 out of 7 days. The challenge with hunting it is that it is maybe 1,500 yards wide and 600 yards, or excuse me, long and 600 yards wide. So depending on where you park, you are going to come in pretty far from the deer. You know, they generally go from one corner to another, where there's cover. Part of it is like Cross Plains State Park, which would border it to the north, and then the Ice Age Trail, which is like to the southwest. And they traverse that cornfield. And so what I found is like 10 or 15 minutes before legal light, they show up in one of those 2 spots, either the way corner on the southwest or the northern side. And I got lucky that day that I set up near the center and had a good rest for my rifle. And I watched as the first 6 deer came into the field, and then the next 11 came in. So there were 17 out there. And I took a shot at 360 yards and missed the deer, and then it ran a little bit closer and I hit it at 325.
There we go.
Yeah. And so I dropped that one. It was great. I mean, like I shoot my rifle a fair amount. Shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor. It shoots flat. I'm using Barnes copper ammo. And I've got like pretty dialed in, with the rifle. And so I shot that. It ended up being a tiny little spike buck fawn, which is perfect for me, given that like I keep shooting deer that test positive for CWD. And so I'm trying to fill my freezer, and I help my friends out as well. So that was successful. And then that following day, I shot one at a buddy's house, on some private land. And so that was awesome. And then a couple days ago on the 1st, I went out again to the same spot. And this time I hit a young fawn that was standing broadside at 410 yards.
Oh my God.
Double lunged her. And again, like, I'm shooting off a rest. That was a small oak tree, a young bur oak that had like a perfect a branch that I can like wedge my rifle in. And I know the ballistics well enough to take that shot. And I watched it go down in the brush about 10 yards from where I shot it. So
Dude, that's awesome.
I mean, hunted 4 days, shot 3 doe, and they're all hanging right now. So yeah, I mean, what else? That's perfect. I mean, it's exactly what I want out of the antlerless season.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, 3 deer hanging there that you can just like sit there and hopefully get that negative the negative test result for, and
for sure
know that you've got that coming for you. I've got mine quartered up, sitting in the fridge, and awaiting the same test. But yeah, dude, mine 3 and 400 yard pokes on whitetail, dude. That's impressive. Like that I don't know, dude. It's not a giant target to hit it at that
Yeah.
distance, especially on button bucks and yearlings and stuff. Like that's seriously impressive. How much shooting do
Well,
you tend to do like in the off season?
a buddy of mine has an organic farm, and he's got a range set up, and we'll shoot at 3 and
Cool.
400. And I don't know. I go out there maybe once a month and take 10 shots or so. I mean, I'm not shooting a
Nice.
bunch, but
Hmm.
just getting out there and having a good time. I'll go out with a buddy, Matt, and you know, it's just fun to do, and always like, because I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. Like, I do a lot of ag tag hunting in the off season,
Hmm.
when I don't have such a successful uh, holiday hunt or antlerless hunt, um, and the opportunities are often at 3, 4, 5, 600 yards, and 400 is about where I feel like that's my max,
Hmm.
in terms of distance. And so, um, I'm practicing at that range so that I can take shots confidently. Luckily that day both those days, it was not that windy. And so I didn't have to account really for any sort of drift. And, so that makes the shot that much easier. But yeah, I mean, they say practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. I don't know. I miss a lot at the target. And so, like, I don't know. You just go through it's no different than when you're shooting your bow. You like
Hmm.
go through a series of like steps to ensure that like you have everything in place before you pull the trigger or release, or let the arrow fly, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely. I think that you're definitely hitting the nail right on the head there with like that quality reps and quality practice. Like we've all kind of gone through that stage of I'm going to shoot 30 arrows a day for this entire month or the entire however long leading up to the season. And then after, on day 6, you start kind of getting lazier. That shoulder is a little bit sore or today, or you start getting a little twitchy with that, index finger, whatever it may be. And that's when things start to fall apart. You start to develop bad habits and everything, like to a point where like I had some target panic that I was dealing with a couple years ago now with the bow, and it like started to creep its way into my rifle shooting a little bit as well. Like shotgunning, I was great because it was awesome. I could just move and kind of just slap at the trigger, and like I mean, probably not a good thing to be doing, but like it was more. You could get away with like the jerkiness of it, and then as it started getting more and more in deer season, I just had a couple of years where I made a weird bad shot and I would hit them. I thought I was dead nuts, like right behind the shoulder, but I ended up hitting just a little bit low and kind of ripping straight through like the sternum a little bit, or like just like the tricep, uh, essentially of the shoulder, and like it wouldn't hit vitals, and I'd have to track them down. It was like kind of just a rough mess. And I started getting in my head and second guessing, like, what am I doing? Like that wasn't like okay, like that was a little bit further of a shot than maybe I should have taken. Like I don't know, and I don't know. I'm not the steadiest of hands, anyways, and usually I've got so much coffee pumping through my veins that you know, by the time shooting hour rolls around, I'm like a little jittery, anyways. But I need to switch to like matcha or something right off the bat to really just calm the nerves, I guess. But
yeah,
did the same thing this past hunt that I had on. I think it was day after Christmas, 2 days after, maybe the 28th. I think we were texting.
yeah.
Whatever day it was. Um, I like shot one, had a group of 4 come in at like 30 yards, and I was like, great, layup shot. This will be awesome. And shooting a 243, hadn't really had any issues with it. Like both the deer that I've shot this year with the 243 have, well, it's gone straight through them, like clean pass through. It's been a total piece of cake. And so I was feeling good about that. And 30 yards, doe comes in. I could have shot the first one. I was like, that second one's really eyeing me up, and I really need a lot of meat right now. So I'm gonna let these 2 go first, and then there's a third and a fourth coming. Great. I'll see if one of them gives me a shot, and then while those first 2 are, you know, confused with what's going on, then I'll turn on one of them. So I shot the third one that came in, and she kind of just did like a 180. And the doe that I shot during the 9-day season, I shot her. She stood there for 30 seconds or so after I shot her and just tipped over. I was like, okay, great. I start packing up my stuff. And like a minute and a half later, as I'm like I lift the shooting bar on the ladder stand and lift that up. I'm about to like sling my rifle over my shoulder and climb down to go get her. She gets up and she runs like 20 yards and then tips over again. So I'm sitting there like, oh, that's weird. Like, not sure what happened there, but okay. 30 seconds go by. She gets up a third or a second time and then runs like another 50, 60 yards. And then I lose her in the brush. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit tight here and make sure she doesn't get up again and then go further down the hill. And I have to make a follow up shot or track her down, God forbid, whatever. So I'm like, I shoot this doe and I waited her out. So I was like, okay, maybe she's going to tip over right here. And then she didn't. I was like, you know what? I should put another one in her real quick, probably. So I racked another one, shot her again. And that one, she kind of did, the little bit of like the shoulder shrug, hunch up kind of thing. And then she started running back the way that she came. Never heard her crash or go down or anything, but I'm sitting there like, okay, great. Like she should be toast. Bummer those other 4 or the other 3 went back with her, but okay, whatever. At least I got one. And gave her an hour just to be safe, climbed down, following this trail. And it's weirdly, there's a massive clump of fur or hair right where I shot her and like a good sort of mist of blood on the snow. I love tracking deer in the snow. We are kind of texting about that.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a good, tough blood trail, but also like when it's in the snow and you've just got the pin pricks that are like highlighted, it's the best. But I tracked her. I'm going down this trail and I'm like, I feel like she should have been dead by now. What the heck? So I'm really taking my time and get into this kind of known bedding area. And I see a white belly. So I'm like, oh, awesome. There she is. Great piece of cake. And I get over kind of basically there was like a thicket of buckthorn that I could see over to see her laying there, but I had to go up and around it to get over to her. And so I go up, put this taller thicket kind of between the two of us. And then I hear brush crack. I see a deer jump up and start working its way off down the hill. And I'm like, what in the world? So I go back to where I was standing to say, like, there's no way that was the same deer. It was one of the other 3. And sure enough, that white belly's gone. So what on earth? And I'm kind of watching for this deer to squirt out into there's a meadow down below that leads down towards the creek bottom. And she goes down there and she's kind of like hobbling a little bit, but not as much as I felt like she maybe should have been. So I was like, okay, well, that's great. Like maybe she'll just keel over right down here in this little oxbow. And so I gave her some time, really, really, really slowly tracked her down into this creek bottom. And as I got closer to the water, I heard some like sloshing in the water. So I'm like, okay, shit, she's going to cross the creek, go out across this meadow and run across the road and out of my life. Like find an opening real quick so that if she does stand up in this meadow, then I'm going to have a shot at her. I can shoot her. And so I tracked her. She never came out. So I'm like, what the heck? So I go down, find very clear blood trail going down into this creek crossing. I cross in there. It's as it was 5 degrees. I was like, great, perfect time to like get wet. This is great. And so I went down, got in the creek and climbed up the other side of the trail, but I couldn't find any blood over there. So like, what the heck? Where did she go? So I'm kind of, at that point, I almost started grid searching a little bit. And I reached down, texted you back that I'd shot one, but I was trying to find it. And as I put my phone into my pocket, she jumps up from the creek, maybe 15 yards from me, and goes over this little oxbow on the other original side of the creek, crosses down into the creek, jumps up the high bank on the side that I was on. So I'm like, okay, she's going to make a break for it across this opening. I need to get where I can get a crack shot at her if she's like running like that. So I ran across, ended up cutting her off kind of as she came up the hill or up the bank. And I stopped her. And then I went to raise my rifle. She saw the movement of that, ran down back the other way, and then had trouble getting back up the high bank going the other way. And then I shot her, and then she slid back down the bank perfectly in the creek, which is awesome. But yeah, not my smoothest hunt by any means. So I'm glad that yours were much smoother than mine was. Because
well, it sounds like it's impossible that if you must have hit her liver or
so
low.
here's the
Okay.
that low spot that I was
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about,
yeah,
kind of goes through
yeah.
the sternum. happened to hit there and happened to hit somehow, like blew one of her shoulders like clean through and just didn't catch any vitals. So
Wow.
I
Okay. Yeah.
need to check the scope, I think, before that one. I felt really good shooting this year because I'd done so much additional target practice. I'm like, great, I'm dialed in. This thing's, shooting exactly where I need it to go, shooting good groups, should be a layup at 30 yards or whatever it was. And I don't know if I
Uh,
yanked it or if I
yeah.
I don't know.
I almost think that a shorter shot can be more challenging for whatever reason, whether it's like
Mhm.
the adrenaline dump you get from having deer be so close, or you had the other two watching you and you felt like, oh, I got to get this just ever so right. Whereas, like, if it's at 120 yards, 130 yards, and you can take a moment to take a few deep breaths, make sure that you're going through that process well, that sometimes those shots are just easier. Um,
Right.
with the with the with the first antlerless hunt that I had, I missed the first shot, and then the second shot felt like all of those nerves, all of that adrenaline dissipated, and I could just take a deep breath and take the right shot.
Hmm.
Sometimes that first target panic, I think, is just a result of like you can't like reconcile all of that adrenaline um, with the moment and um, perform, I guess.
Hmm.
Uh,
No,
but yeah,
definitely. And I think, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but when you texted me and you're like, "Yeah, I got a great shot," and then you like texted back like, "Oh, it ran away." I was like, "What the heck?" How did that? How did it go from great to not?
Yep. Yep. That's exactly it. Well, I mean, even the buck that I shot, I don't know. I'm on a tear of liver shooting deer this year. And I'm not sure why. The buck that I shot in Iowa, that one was a liver hit, liver and rear lung that I ended up bumping. And, same kind of thing. Like, I don't know. I love but hate a liver shot deer because the liver shot deer is obviously going to die like quickly. And like, especially when you have that, just the drop in blood pressure a lot of times, like, they don't go far. I mean, this buck in particular, like, he didn't even know that I shot him until he started really losing blood and then finally started getting shaky. And it wasn't until I found him with my flashlight, turned off the flashlight, and then tripped over the branch trying to back out quietly so that I wouldn't push him any further that he knew I was there and knew that I was trying to, well, kill him. And so that was unfortunate. But I don't know. Like, it's, I don't love creeping my shots closer to the shoulder just because I've had issues like I've discussed shooting through right behind that kind of tricep area or hitting low or whatever. But I don't know. That'll be one of my resolutions for 2026. I think is we'll improve the marksmanship, which I feel like I've said every year for the last like 3 years, but this time for real.
uh, I all of the first shots I took on deer were too far back. I felt like both with the
Mm,
bow and with the rifle, and just started to like trace that leg straight up and not worry about even with I went to like a heavy arrow setup and like a single bevel broadhead,
mhm,
just with the thought of like, I can shoot a pretty decent group at 30 yards with the bow, um, but just depending on a small movement or a step forward or whatever, you're going to hit that humerus or that scapula some percentage of the time. When you're especially when you're shooting a bow, like things go wrong seemingly all the time, and
right.
so you want to like have contingency for when it does go wrong. Can I still harvest this animal? And so I thought like a heavy arrow setup. I'm a small guy. I'm only pulling like 53-pound draw or something like that. So utilizing a setup that can like bust through and at least get through the shoulder is something that was like, you know, just important for me.
Mhm,
So not to say that you should shoot farther forward, but maybe you should shoot farther forward. I don't know.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
have you had any issues with, like, arrow penetration or pass-throughs or anything like that, shooting
It's
with that lighter setup with the heavier arrow?
No, not at all.
Huh.
As a matter of fact, it's been wild to see how effective it is at punching through bone, not just the ribs, but like hard bone. I had one at a downward angle a year or two ago that went it like clipped one of the vertebrae. and just like sheared right through it and went down into the chest cavity, which was
Dang.
pretty amazing to see. I mean, that it obviously wasn't the best shot. I was higher. It was like closer than I thought. Oftentimes when you range a deer, you're like, okay, this is 15 yards. That tree is 20 yards. That is 25. And then they're moving and I mean, they don't stand next to that marker like you'd like them to. And so
Yep.
you have to sort of estimate. Um, but yeah, the heavy arrow setup has been a revelation. It really has.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know that people are, especially, it's like a hot topic in the hunting industry. Do you want to have like a laser beam that you're shooting 85 yards, an expandable, or do you want to have something a little heavier, and it might arc out there, but if it hits anything that is harder, will still penetrate. And
Mhm.
given like the low poundage that I'm drawing, it just seemed like a no brainer for me to try it out. And so far, so good. I have had no
That's
issues
awesome.
whatsoever. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard this. I've never dabbled in like the trad archery realm or anything like that, or shooting longbows or recurves outside of high school gym class. But like I've heard the arrow setups for trad bows in particularly are just ridiculously heavy up front because there's so little power in the back that you need that much inertia, that hard of a hammer hitting whatever bone or whatever it may be, and then it in turn also helps them group and fly better and all that. But yeah, it's weird that because you'd think like, oh, well, if I'm going to shoot a lighter or a lower draw weight, like I should be shooting a lighter arrow so that it goes super fast and it's nice and zippy, just like the 70-pound draw weight or whatever. But yeah, no, I like that. And I think guys are starting to, I feel like, I hope, I don't know. I feel like people are starting to maybe quit drinking some of, like, the Kool-Aid in the hunting industry, like, on the expandable front, on the high FOC front. Like, I feel like everyone's kind of I'm hoping that we got through that stage of hunting media or hunting content or whatever that, the arrow debate and, what your FOC is down to the, thousandth of a percentile. Like, I'm hoping that we're through that and people understand, like, this is what I need if I'm gonna shoot a mechanical setup. This is what I need if I'm gonna shoot a fixed blade, and here's why one is better than the other. Fixed blade is better, but
Well, I mean, I would imagine that those debates will continue forever.
Mhm.
People are so entrenched in their camps. People love to politic about all sorts of stuff, and that's just one of them in the hunting industry that that happens. For me, I just um, the most important thing for me is, can I shoot it accurately, and can it ethically kill an animal? Can I ensure that it's going to go where I want it to go, and is it going to penetrate enough to kill that animal? And if those are two things are like 90 some percent of the time yes, then I feel like I'm in a good space. Um, you know, I don't know, teach their own. If you want to
Mhm.
shoot like the 9-inch expandable beast monster broadhead, then like, so be it. If that works for you, then that works. That's great.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. Well, because
I
at
don't,
the same time, yeah, like, you've got the element of, like, your confidence gear, right? Like, everybody's got that little psychological backing that comes from, like, using gear that you've used before that you're confident in or that you're a believer in for whatever reason, and if that helps you maybe find that vital V and, like, make a perfect shot and, like, clip the top of the heart and double lung that thing and it runs 15 yards and keels over, like, more power to you. I don't know. It's
absolutely.
it's
Uh, we all
it's
want the same thing, right? I mean, that's
right.
like everyone wants that thing. And what you were talking about, I don't know if this was when we were recording or not, having like a little bit of a um, lack of confidence, or like you're not, um, what did you call it? The yips? Did you call it the yips? Sort of like having the
No, but
yips,
same thing. Yeah,
like, yeah,
it's
yeah,
totally like having the yips. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And if you have the yips, it's like you're no longer settling into that moment and like going through the process to ensure that you're doing a good thing. You're like is this right? Do I know what I'm doing?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna fuck up. Excuse me, can I do that? Sorry.
Yeah, you're
Um,
good.
okay. Um, am I gonna make a mistake here? And that like undermines your capability of being an effective hunter. Um, Not just with like the target moment, but like the same thing when you're reading sign or like trying to pick a tree or pick a spot. If you get in that mindset of like, "Oh, I should be sitting over there. Oh, 2 years ago I saw a buck come over here and that's where I should be." That really that like removes you from the moment and removes you from
Totally.
being your best self. You start to second guess yourself and um yeah, I mean, I just think that you're much less effective as a hunter or a predator
Mhm.
in those moments.
Well, totally, dude. And like, I mean, we've talked about if we want to get scientific about it. Like, I've talked with Jacob Sklenner and a number of other guys talking about like I mean, Jacob is unbelievably detail oriented down to the point where like we got into a conversation once about how when a buck rubs a tree, he's not only like distributing his own um orbital gland scent, but he's also ripping up that tree so that the tree releases a norepinephrine response, which is like the same smell of like cut grass and like the same thing that like we smell if we're trampling down a trail to and from a stand or whatever day after day. Like that disturbance and that bio I guess the breakdown of these plants that we step on or we snap off or our gear snags on, whatever it may be, like that releases a scent. And if you think about going into the woods and you're super stressed out or you're second guessing what shot you're going to take or you're second guessing the tree that you're in or you're even just like doubtful or negative, like you're stressing yourself out. And whether you believe it or not, like your body is releasing the same stress chemical, the same stress hormone that like a plant does or a tree does when it gets rubbed. Like it's stress. It's all just stress. So like the less the less stressed you can be, or the even just like the even if you have to fake confidence, because that's honestly what got me over like the hurdle with the target panic was just faking confidence and be like, this is the tree I'm in, and screw it. If I don't see anything, I'll sit in that tree the next time I'm out here if I need to be in a different one. And like having the confidence and the acceptance of like not second guessing yourself at that moment of truth, or even just on the walk in of like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be in this spot. I should have gone that way or whatever. Like just get in a tree. Like that's the thing. Like, and we all see it with deer too. Like that one doe catches you or wins you, and the next deer that comes down that trail gets to that same exact spot that she was at and smells that fresh stress hormone, that fresh fear, for lack of a better term, and they freeze and they wig out and they do the same thing. Like at that point, like you need to get out of your own head enough to be comfortable and be confident enough. And whether that comes from shooting a bunch in the off season, or whether it comes from shooting just a couple good arrows right before you leave the truck. I mean, shoot, I've heard from other guys like out west where they are making longer shots with the rifles and everything. Like they won't even chamber around on the first, quote unquote shot that they take. Like they'll dry fire one just to get those nerves out, and then they'll rack or chamber around and shoot it from there. Like whatever you can do to just separate yourself from the moment in order to allow you to be in it is gonna benefit you significantly.
And I think I agree with everything you said. And I think that a lot of guys are so results driven that they forget that it's all a journey. And um, you should enjoy from like you shouldn't enjoy all of it. I mean, you should go enjoy the walk in. You should enjoy everything you're doing and put aside the stress of life, the stress of work, the stress of worrying about like, am I going to shoot the largest buck or am I going to fill my tag today? Because all of those things do, I think, undermine your success if you are concerned about the result. They definitely undermine your happiness and enjoyment of the hunt, which is
Totally.
it's it's a whole like hunting is multitudes and being out there is really what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, I want to harvest a deer, and for like antlerless season, obviously I'm going out with like an hour left and I'm sitting in like an urban setting and I have very results driven. But most of the time I'm hunting, I'm just out there. like looking at red-headed woodpeckers and watching the otters swim by and being like, um, watching the sun as it traverses the sky and seeing how the shadows change and how the aesthetics of the woods change. And all of that is like infinitely fascinating and enjoyable to me. And I don't ever want to lose sight of that because I need to, be successful in some narrow sense.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I got to get that big buck. Um, and I do think, um, at my worst, that's what I'm focused on is like, oh, how can I ensure that I'm shooting the largest deer possible?
Mhm.
And the reality is like, if I bring that sort of stress into the woods, I'm less likely to shoot the largest deer. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I just try to enjoy all of it as a
Totally.
woodman, as a woodsman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. As you were saying that, like, I was trying to think of like, is there a time that it's acceptable to like start stressing it over? And I think it's like if you have a totally empty freezer, yes, antlerless season, like if you're being very results driven and stuff. But honestly, one of the things that I was chatting at one of the expos or something last spring, and I ran into Andre DeQuisto, and I was chatting with him. We were catching up about the season. I told him about this buck that I'd been chasing and all that. And he very plainly just said to me, he was like, right. I made a comment that I was like, "Yeah, like, so hopefully, like, I can, track him down again next year." And he's like, "Dude, next year, like, you don't know what's gonna happen to that deer. Like, he could get hit by a car, he could get eaten by coyotes, he could just get sick, he could, fall and break a leg, and he'd be totally toast. Like, you you can't focus on hunting the same deer year after year after year. Like, you have to go in with the assumption of like, I need to every single year is a blank slate, and I need to find that big buck that I'm gonna chase that year, if that's your goal or whatever it may be, because so much happens in the 9 months of off season that you're not allowed to hunt that deer that, you don't know if that buck could move 3 miles away or, what happened. He got poached, who knows? But if you sit there and you tie yourself to one specific deer that, your worth is to that, like, you're just gonna drive yourself into the ground. It's not sustainable. And, like, it's so true, and I like you're obviously a public land hunter and obviously you mentioned like hunting private as well. But like nothing sounds more stressful to me right now than if I were a private land guy who was raising a handful of bucks, praying that they made it to next year. You know what I mean? Like if I would be shattered if I had like a 160 that was gonna be he should be cracking 180 next year, and it just never shows up. Like, I would be just pulling my hair out if I was tied to that methodology of, trying to, I guess, raise one. I don't know, dude. The pursuit of finding one is, like, more fun than almost, like, even shooting one, I've found.
Sure. So a couple things. I have a friend who has a bunch of land. I think right now he's got like 260 acres, and he is in the process of raising deer for next year.
Mhm.
He bow hunts his land. A couple of people get permission, and he was gracious enough to let me shoot a doe. But for the most part, he is like, I want to shoot a giant buck on my property. He runs cell cameras. He's got the whole thing. Um, he's thinking about like what sort of food do I plant. How am I cutting trails? Am I making hinge cuts? Going through YouTube and the podcast space, trying to learn as much as he can about attracting wildlife to his, well, not wildlife specifically, large bucks um, to his property. And almost every time I talk to him, he's stressed about a neighbor that saw his deer at this point, or I haven't seen them since this date. When I shot that doe on his property last week, he told me the bucks are gone. I haven't seen the big eight. I haven't seen the 11 pointer. He's got names for him. He's like Tank is gone and Mr. T is not around or whatever.
Mhm.
And he embodies like this stress because like he's got eyes in the woods all the time, so he knows what's there, or he has like a sense of what's there and what's not there. And um, he puts a lot of value on like, can I shoot a 180-inch deer? Am I going to be able to put one of these on my wall? And to me, like I don't have those opportunities, so maybe it's cute of me to say, but I find like that my enjoyment in the woods is far greater than his is because I don't know ever what I'm going in after. I'm just like
Hmm.
picking a spot in public land. I like do some research on Onyx and I'm like, this is my spot. I'm going to go to this spot and I'm going to see what I can see. And if the sign tells me to go somewhere else, I'll go somewhere else. But I don't have any idea about, I know that there's a 12 pointer here that I want to shoot. He's my target buck. Because I think that, I mean, I don't know. Again, it's cute of me to say. I don't have the opportunity to do that. So I think it sort of undermines people's enjoyment of the pursuit that we're engaging in.
Hmm. Well, it's like the anti-trail cam debate, right? Like, if you were to remove cell cams or remove trail cams entirely and only hunt based off of just what you saw while you were hunting, like, would you enjoy it more? Would you get more fired up at the 110-inch 8-pointer that comes cruising down the trail on October 30th? Like, probably. Like, if I'm not running cameras out there, yeah, I'm probably going to shoot that buck because I don't know. And if you do know that there's a big giant buck out there, like, you saw him with your own eyes and you saw what he did and where he went, you can develop your plan off of that rather than just like, oh, Jesus, 12 pointer came through on camera and hit the scrape at 4 a.m. and like, he could be anywhere. Like, if you, I don't
Yeah.
know, dude, it's so much more rewarding when you see him on the hoof in person. Like, oh, shoot, he came out of that draw with that doe on this wind. Okay, let's start putting all the puzzle pieces together and figure out, like build a file on this deer more or less. And like, why did he do that? What was he doing? Like, what motivated him to do that? And like answering the questions, like at that point, like that's the fun part for me at least. And like, I
Yeah.
say that as a guy who just pulled down his last cell cam on public last year on a property that I never even hunted. And like, I don't know, I scouted after I pulled it and I was like, I really should have spent more time down here this year. And I had the Iowa tag, so I put my chips in that basket, but I was still kicking myself. But I try and tell myself, like, well, at least like next year there'll be bigger bucks in theory out in this public. Who knows? I don't know. We'll find out next year. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
There is even when you're running cell cams, there's no way to know. There's no way to ensure
Mhm.
that things are going to be the way that you expect them to be. And that's, I mean, that's life. That for me is like the excitement of it. To just go in blind and hope for the best. Um, and use the clues that you see around you to to be successful. But again, like I think for me, when I was a first time bow hunter, I was like dead set. I'm going to shoot a giant buck because I knew that near my house there's some public land where it butts up right next to a few thousand acres of non-hunted land, and you can go there almost any time of the day and see deer feeding in the field. It's almost like a reserve, and they filter onto the public land. And I'd seen them there, and I was like, I just want to shoot a big buck, and I let tons of little bucks pass. I let does pass. I was just dead set on shooting a big buck, and those 2 years I didn't shoot anything, and I was frustrated almost the entire time because I could use my binoculars, look 1,000 yards that way, and be like, "Look at that 10 pointer that's over there. That's a
Mhm.
huge deer." Um, you know, and so like being hung up on that, not to say that you people shouldn't have those goals, but I do think that um, life is stressful enough that we shouldn't make hunting as stressful as sometimes we make it,
Totally.
because it should be relaxing
Mhm. Yeah,
or
and it's like,
fun.
dude, yeah, exactly. Well, I like that you acknowledge too that we are both individuals who do not have a primo chunk of 200 acres that we can manicure and raise deer on. So this is all our own speculation, but I don't know. Like that's kind of the fun of public land too, right? Is like there's so many variables and there's so many like I don't know if that buck's going to be over here or if Joe Schmo is going to run through this draw and blow every deer out of there, the evening before, whatever it may be. Like, you never know until you're actually in there and you have to figure it out on the fly. And that's like, it's the most rewarding part of it, right? You also realize on those scenarios, like what you just said, where you've got like that private that's non huntable and then there's the public, and you can sit there and you can see those deer that are out there. And like, even on private, like I remember growing up looking into this cornfield and being able to see, the cornfield was not ours, but being able to see a group of bucks and like does and everything and just be like, well, there's nothing I can do from here but sit
Yeah.
back and watch. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's painful, but. also reminds you like, oh yeah, those deer 100% know that I'm out here. And
Yeah.
I don't know, just all the realizations, like when you look back on like stuff that you did early on in your hunting career, it's makes you laugh for sure. That's
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. But dude, I realize we're 40 minutes into this right now, but we haven't actually given you a formal introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about
Oh,
who you are and where you're from? And you've kind of like gotten little bits and pieces of you here, but tell us a little bit about yourself and like kind of how you got into hunting and what a year of outdoor pursuits looks like for you.
all right. Was born in Illinois, um, and spent a couple weeks every year in Wisconsin fishing. So
Hmm.
my first love is fishing, bass fishing. My dad would take me fishing fairly frequently, and we'd go places where we could catch panfish all day, or try to catch large smallmouth, which is still something I quite enjoy doing. Both of those things. But then when I was in middle school, moved to Mount Horeb, and I went to high school there, and didn't hunt at all. Like, I knew people who hunted, but my family doesn't hunt. Um, so fast forward to, when did I first start hunting? 2016, I think, was when I first went hunting, and and it was just like a family friend was like, "Hey, do you want to go hunting with me?" And at that point, like, um, I was, pretty established in fishing, and I thought like I would like to eat cleaner diet. So for me, it was like the pursuit of meat, and the pursuit of meat that's not factory farmed was like a huge impetus for motivating me to want to go hunting. But then
Hmm.
also, um, I love to be outdoors. Like, I am outdoors all the time. Um, Basically every chance I get, like, I'm driving a little west of where I live, and going for a walk. I'm sure we'll talk about it. I bring my camera everywhere I go, and so um, you know, it was like obvious to me that like hunting would be something that I would enjoy. But then going out and doing it was a revelation, and I just fell in love with it. Um, and so at this point, I start. Well, I'm like scouting all year long, and I am out in the woods every chance I can get all year long. And so, um, you know, I'm always trying to um, capture animals either in photography, or I like to catch snakes and turtles and amphibians. I have kids, and so it's like that's something we do for fun. Is we go out and try to catch reptiles. So I'm always like doing something outdoors, and just deer hunting is one of those things that I quite enjoy. And over the last several years, I've just been able to fill my freezer every year and eat venison all year long. I don't buy any beef. I don't buy any pork. I'm eating venison and chickens. Uh, so that's like you know my outdoor life, sort of. And as far as like what I do for a living, I'm a high school teacher, so that's really great. It affords me a lot of time to be outdoors, especially in the summer. It's real challenging during like the hunting season to get out, just because September is like the ramp up of hunting season. It's also when the semester starts, and I'm trying to learn 150 kids new names and like develop
Hmm.
curriculum. And uh, you know, just there's a lot of grading and a lot of stuff to be done during hunting season. And so over the last couple of years, I've been saving time off to take like rutcation days, or strategic, like, hey, I'm going to go out in the woods on these 2 days, and I'm going to just take a couple days off and do all day sits, um, so that I can, it's like a great way to decompress. Like I've obviously stated in the early part of this podcast, like I think it should be fun and it should be relaxing. You should leave all your stuff, um, leave all your stuff at the truck when you go into the woods.
Hmm.
Uh, and so, uh, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching by day, and sometimes leaving school and like driving straight to public land and sitting there for a half hour and hoping that I catch a deer moving through. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I guess what I, you know, I've shot a lot of deer in my life. Most of which I think, like by the numbers, maybe the majority have been ag tag hunting. So antlerless deer hunting, usually in the winter, like January, February, March.
Mhm.
And that's been really a fruitful thing for me. When I strike out during the 9 day, or deer start to disappear during these various hunts, that they show up again and they start hitting food pretty hard in the afternoon, and um, you can harvest some animals, help out a landowner, benefit conservation by removing does from the landscape, benefit science by getting those deer tested for CWD. And so that's all around been a really great program for me. And it's also helped me be successful and gain a lot of experience, so that I can feel confident taking a 410-yard shot during the during the holiday hunt, or the antlerless hunt, I guess, as it were.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome, man. And I'm curious, how do you structure, I guess, so I've got a number of friends from college who are school teachers. Granted, they're elementary school teachers. So maybe the degree of autonomy from their students to your students is obviously fairly large just on what they can handle, and the amount of change and flexibility they have. But I've been just, I don't want to say badgering him, but I've been trying to nudge him. Just be like, hey, dude, you should like not to not to tell you what to do with your PTO, but like you should really like, dude, take a Friday. Come on, like do something. Like, how do you structure your? My hope is that no one in your administration, and none of your administrative superiors are listening to this, but many other teachers are listening to this who are in the same boat of like, how do I structure my deer season? And maybe tweak my curriculum a little bit. Like, is there any like, does that play into it at all? It's like, you know what, this test could be on November 7th, but what if I made it like November 10th instead? Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. Let's maybe do like, is there any degree of that?
for sure. 100%. Um, so
Yes.
I generally like take one of those. We have like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off for like Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
And I generally take, yeah, either the Monday or Tuesday off. And we do like a block scheduling at the high school, at least where I work. And
Hmm.
we structure our unit so that, like, hey, those days we're going to watch a film about whatever content we're working on. So like if I decide that I'm going to take the Monday off, the sub can come in, they can do the job effectively, which is just like press play, and or hand out a worksheet and press play. And that can be really beneficial for me to get that day out in the woods. But then I just try not to take time off during the year, um, for really any reason other than, can I schedule some days? I usually like that first week in November. I feel like I see a lot of rutting
Hmm.
activity then. And can I take a couple days off there? Um, Middle of the week is ideal. Mondays and Fridays, a lot of people want to steal so they can do a whole weekend. But for me, it's like if I can get out Tuesday and Wednesday, that is awesome. And
Totally.
you I mean, you just got to plan ahead. I mean, I plan that ahead like 2 months in advance, and I go, all right, I'm going to put these days in September. I know that I'm going to go out these days. I'm not going to worry about the weather. Obviously, like if you're a detailed hunter, you're like, okay, I want a high pressure system coming through, and I want a clear day, and I want, this wind, and I want to, all of that goes out the window. It's like, I'm taking these 2 days off. I'm going to just sort of hope that the weather's advantageous. And if it's raining all day, which I was 3 years ago standing, I guess I was in a stand in the tree, and it was pouring rain, like just pouring rain. And I was like, well, this is the day that I have off. So I'm going to go and I'm going to hunt it and see what I see. And I think you just have to make that commitment early. If it's something you desire, you accrue PTO, and, you know, use it for what you want to use it for. And for me, that's getting in the trees a couple times, either late October or early November. Um, and again, midweek is great, and doing it early enough so that you can plan out exactly what the students need to do, and you can restructure those big activities or those tests so that, like, I'm not asking a sub to come in and do a simulation, or a sub to come in and give an exam, because that would be a disaster for me.
Right.
Then I would stress about it in the woods. I'd be like, oh God, this sub is going to do a terrible job. No offense to all the substitutes. We love you out there. You're super useful, but it's hard to go into a classroom and, give a complex lesson or do something that is a little bit more, um, logistically challenging, I think. And so
Totally.
movie day, beautiful. We can take a movie day once a semester. No big deal.
Do many of your students know that, like, okay, movie day, or like Mr. Jeffco's out today? He's probably
Uh,
hunting. Do you have any of that rapport with any of your students, or try and keep it hush
yeah.
hush?
No, I mean, to a certain extent, I don't usually let them know. I might say like, "Hey, I'm not gonna be here next time, so we're, doing this thing, and you have to turn it in late," or there may be some foreshadowing of what's to transpire. But yeah, kids know, and especially this year, given what transpired on my rutcation, then like, yeah,
Yeah.
kids are more than aware of like, Mr. Jeffco goes out in the woods, and um, I mean, the kids all make fun of me anyways. Like, they're chronically online, and they'll be like, "Oh, what are you gonna go do? Touch grass? You're gonna be out there like communing with nature?" So we have uh, we have fun with it. But yeah, I mean, kids are they're aware for sure.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, before we dive into the story of your rutcation here, I'm curious because obviously high schoolers are a creative bunch. Have they, has there been like, I guess, what has been like the best shit you've had flipped your way by a student about your hunting?
Oh, I don't know. What's the best shit that I had flip my way? Are you talking about like some
Just
like
that
some
one smart ass kid in the third row who's loves, pushing your
yeah,
buttons, and happen to find out that maybe you stab yourself in the knee. Like,
yeah,
is
yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
a
Well, I mean, I think that like largely speaking that nearly every kid um well, I shouldn't say that. Actually broke pretty strongly down gender lines where um many of my female students were appalled at my rutcation story, and a lot of the guys were like, "Did you get a cool scar? That's so awesome! What a badass thing you did." Um, so I think like the kids don't give me too much crap about hunting necessarily. I've had like some pretty pointed conversations with kids that aren't super fun about meat acquisition or about um, maybe like our food systems in the United States, like what we're eating, and um, maybe the amount of suffering that might go into like uh, like I don't want to like crap on Smithfield, but like some sort of like factory farming enterprise or like Tyson Chicken. These kids will
Mhm.
be like, "I can't believe you hunt. What an awful thing to do. You kill an innocent animal." And those are the same kids that are like going to Chick-fil-A for lunch. And I just like, let's have a conversation about this because
Right.
kids are super idealist, which is awesome. Um, but sometimes like their idealism is not informed by a lot of information, or maybe it's informed by misinformation, or maybe they have a lot of passion for something that they haven't really researched. And so um, I would say like a lot of the interactions I have with kids regarding hunting are around the questions about ethics and about I don't know whether or not it should be something that people are allowed to do, which is pretty wild given, that I live here in Wisconsin, right? I mean,
Yeah. Right.
with such a long hunting culture that has been ingrained in the state, it's interesting to see how many kids are unfamiliar with it and also have sort of a negative association with hunting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, kind of like we talked about before we hit record, like, obviously you're teaching in the Madison area, and you know, you go a half hour west to the maybe Mount Horror Blue Mountains area where you've got the Vortex headquarters. You got a little bit more ag land and everything. Things are a little more spread out. Totally different culture. Then you go a little further west, hit, Dodgeville, Mineral Point, another like way different world. You keep going for like the further outside of it you go, that perception's very changing. Like I would imagine you go to talk to, I don't know, the kids at some high school in Richland Center or something like that, or whatever it is, more rural area. Like I would imagine the hunting culture has probably remained the same for the last handful of decades. Whereas obviously in, Madison, more metropolitan area and everything, it's conversations obviously are shifting, and that, I guess, I don't want to say more thoughts being put into it, but more maybe questions around the ethics, around the acquisition side of things, and around the, is taking this life the best way for that animal to maybe avoid suffering, or maybe not, or whatever it may be. So it's very interesting. I'm glad that those conversations are being had by your students, because the hope is, of course, like, they maybe learn a different perspective than one that they had, or at least one that's maybe a little bit more like, hey, this is actually like why we're hunting, and why I choose to harvest my own meat, like for the exact same reasons of, like, well, that factory farm, chicken or cow or pig or whatever it was, like, here's the living conditions that that thing had. Here's, how they dispatch those animals. Here's how they're treated. Here's that. Whereas this thing, like, up until the moment I pulled the trigger, like, he was living life to the fullest, and that's that. And so, where do we, I guess, which one carries more weight? I don't know. It's up to you. Like, you figure it out. So that's really awesome that you're having those kind of discussions with students, and hopefully they're receptive.
Yeah, I think they really are. We talk about concentrated animal feeding operations, and we like sort of highlight that in one of my courses.
Hmm.
And that's like a revelatory moment for a lot of kids. And if that initial conversation about hunting is not informative, you do like a small unit study about factory farming, and especially those concentrated animal feeding operations, the CAFOs. And all of a sudden, they just have like a different awareness about food in general. They think like, oh, um, I mean, this is a literal quote from a kid 2 years ago. Why are we doing an agriculture unit? Agriculture has nothing to do with my life, is what a kid told me. And I think that like it's a great indicator of like how separated kids are from the landscape, or from like the natural
Mhm.
cycles of earth, or to sort of conceive of the world as like, yeah, I get my food from a grocery store, and that's where all food comes from. Not acknowledging that like all life is growing on the earth, whether it's plant life or animal life, and that like we are harvesting it in some capacity or another. um like it's, I mean, obviously kids are born in this world, they have no idea what's going on, and like you gain knowledge. But I think part of my job is to um try to get kids to be curious about the world in which they live. And so hunting offers like this interesting avenue into talking about a lot of things, like we sort of talked about a little bit about the philosophy behind hunting, or the ethics of hunting, or meat acquisition, or factory farming. Um, but I think what you highlighted about kids who live in other areas is interesting as well. Uh, I would imagine like the farther you get from Madison, the more likely kids are to have some sort of relationship to the outside world. They might have grown up on a farm, or they live in a rural area and so they have a garden, or um, they play outside with their friends because like that's the landscape in which they live. And for the kids who live near me, a lot of them are born into a urban area. They spend a lot of time in that urban area. They might not know anyone who farms. They probably don't know anyone who hunts. And so their relationship to the outside world is just very different. Um, and so, they come from a place of like ignorance when it comes to hunting. And their initial reaction is like, well, you're killing something and that's wrong, which I think is like a decent impulse. But if you like
Mhm.
unpack that concept a little bit, you can sort of like illuminate, um, I don't know, a different perspective that they can then consider. And so I'm over here fighting the good fight for hunters, I guess, for the next generation. I want kids to view the pursuit as like a deeply human pursuit, something that people have been doing for a long time. And relating it to food, I think is a very obvious thing to do if you want to like demonstrate that hunting as a pursuit is not only super valid and and ethical, but it's just like a human pursuit. So
Mhm. No, that's awesome, man. It's, I have often thought of it from the standpoint of, like, science, like when we talk about wildlife management, and like why is nobody teaching the North American model of conservation, which I talked with Doug a little bit about, and learned a lot through that conversation. That kind of swayed my mind the other way. But I always think of it in terms of like science should be teaching this the wildlife management thing. After all, it's the wildlife biology students who are going in to be these conservation in theory, but so much of it stems from because it is. I mean, it is a social primal part of our DNA, like from a you know, I guess what's the word I'm looking for here? Oh, come on, college. Think here. What was the major? What was the major? Not sociology. I don't know. It's gonna slip my mind, but basically just like a human historical um, framework of like we've hunted for our entire existence up until kind of like the last 30, 40 years or so that we've kind of been able to like have people who can fully not hunt or not, rely on any sort of gardening or wild game. And you had the systems in place to allow for that sort of thing. But so much of it does come from, and these conversations come from looking back at like, well, hey, why are we doing it this way? And why are we, why is hunting now viewed as something that's bad or foreign or whatever? And like one of the things you said there about kids in more rural areas being more exposed to gardening or hunting or farming or whatever it may be, like, shoot, it only takes one experience out there. Like I have a buddy who, I mean, he's lived in Middleton for I think his entire life, with the exception of 1 year. He lived in Barneveld because while they were building the house, and he lived in Barneveld. He had four-wheelers, and they had like 60 acres or something like that he would rip that four-wheeler around on, and they deer hunted out there. And he did that 1 year, and it's like ingrained in him now. Like, oh well, this is what I could be doing. Meanwhile, yeah, I'm here in Middleton, he's very successful, he's doing well, but still it's like that part of him, that sort of itch to be human, to go outside, to experience those things, to have those interactions, whether it be through hunting or fishing or just riding a four-wheeler around or whatever. Like those are core memories that kind of I feel like they unlock something in kids when they have the opportunity to experience that and get their hands dirty and like do those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's, you asked a little bit about like, how did I get into outdoor pursuits or hunting or whatever? I mean, it's just from being a young person. I grew up right outside of Chicago. So when I was young, it was like, we lived in an area where there was like enough woods, like forest preserves, that like I could get out during the year. But those trips up to Wisconsin to go to Boulder Junction to go fishing, or to, head to Devil's Lake and go camping, or just like bounce around and camp, those were my favorite memories. And whether it's like just whittling sticks, climbing trees, you know, finding cool rocks. Like I said, I love to catch amphibians. So I'd like fill up a minnow bucket full of frogs. Like those were like core memories for me. So like as
Sure.
I've gotten older, it's like not only am I still doing those things, I've expanded my horizons outdoors, but I'm also like taking my kids along and forcing them, usually they come willingly, but like forcing them to do the same stuff. Um, uh, because I think that those, um, for me, they are core memories. They're also just like, they're fundamental to my well-being, to be able to get out in the woods, to be able to, I don't know, connect with my humanity. I think
Mhm.
is something that, you said like it's been 30 or 40 years, but I would argue like since the Industrial Revolution in this country, and the the invention of a bunch of agricultural, um, techniques to create so much surplus, people have been able to urbanize, and like that urbanization has removed a lot of that, exposure to the wild spaces for people for sometimes generations. I mean, there's people that their grandparents, like my grandparents lived in the Chicagoland area, and they were born there. They're so my great grandparents had come over from Europe, but there was several I guess generations where we were removed from, I don't know, the wilds. Yeah,
Mhm.
and for a lot of kids, I think there's just like, um the wild is something you see on television, or it's that thing I see through the car window when I'm not looking at my phone, and not anything more than that. And you know, call me a humanist, but like I sometimes fear like the trajectory into like the techno future, and maybe that hunting will go away. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, should we be teaching the North American wildlife model? That would be great. I think that would be awesome. Um, what I would love to see is just kids get outdoors more often than they are. At least in my area, obviously we talked about like maybe my experience is a little narrow, but like those urban kids, they should go outside, touch grass, as
Mhm.
they say.
Yeah. Totally,
Yeah,
dude. Totally.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, man, we touched on it earlier about an eventful rutcation you had this year. We heard about it a little bit in our conversation with Matt Geiger. Folks, if you listen to that episode, this is the man, the myth, the legend, Matt Jefko, who may have had an incident with a knife. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about that hunt?
yeah. Okay, so took the rutcation. I had gone out the 1st and the 2nd of November, and went out to some public land, Yellowstone Lake, which is it's a state park
Big.
here but it's real big. It's like 5,000 plus acres, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, and I've hunted out there during gun season a bunch and done a little bit of bow hunting out there. And during the gun season, it is both the best and the worst of public land. But during the bow season, as long as you're not where the pheasant are being released and guys are running dogs, there's a lot of great spots. And where it's situated in Lafayette County is ag in every direction for miles. I mean, you're talking about very little woods and a whole lot of corn, a whole lot of soy. Um, and so those deer are, generally speaking, living in the wooded like drainages that go through that park. And so I have a little bit of experience out there, and so I went out there the 1st and the 2nd and saw a bunch of deer. uh I'll just say on the first day, I saw maybe 3 or 4 deer, some like rutting activity. I saw some young bucks, and I was like, okay, I'm going to set up in a similar oak tree, maybe 50 yards closer to bedding. This is sort of like to just set the scene. It's an oak flat that's like on the edge. It's on like the western edge of the property. There is there's a drainage, like a thermal dump, you might call it, like down where there's like a bunch of crisscrossing paths, and then there's really thick understory on some of these fingers that go down. And so
Hmm.
they're bedding sometimes in this like these thick areas because they're only, you know anywhere between like 2 yards and like 100 yards away from these ag fields that abut the property all over the place.
Yeah.
And so um you know, I'm out there to shoot a deer. If I could shoot a big buck, that would be super exciting. Don't get me wrong. I would love to shoot a big buck. Like, the novelty of doing that is always super exciting. So I went out there and I saw a lot of deer. I saw, I think over the course of 2 days, like 25 deer, which for public land is delightful.
That's a hell of a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hell of days.
Um, and so the the Monday after that weekend, I went to work, and then I got up at 2:30 in the morning and left my house and drove to the parking lot, which is 1.88 miles away from the tree I eventually chose. And I walk in, no headlamp. Um, I kind of like, there's a access trail that goes like maybe half the distance, and then you kind of can go through a field and some CRP and then head towards the woods. And the previous day, or the 2 days prior, in the morning before shooting light, there were deer everywhere. And then, like, right when shooting light happened, I was like just setting up my stand, and 7 deer came through, one really nice buck. And I was like, oh, I got to get here earlier. What am I doing? I got to be here earlier.
Hmm.
Like, you live and you learn. It was super exciting, but I couldn't get a shot at any of those deer that second day. So the third day, I'm going to set up a little bit closer to where they're coming from. They're coming from like this ag field to the west. Um, there's a bunch of in this oak flat. There's a bunch of down trees, and it sort of like funnels them in like, maybe there's like 3 trails that come through.
Hmm.
So you just know that like the deer are going to come through at some point, and they're going to go to the bedding that's out on the end of that point, or they're gonna like head through this oak flat and they're gonna go to the bedding that's over the hill. And so um, I set up in a tree that's like near the confluence of like these three trails, and I'm feeling pretty good. And sure enough, like, it's still dark, but like deer are moving around, and I'm, hoping that this whole time the wind is coming out of the south, which is like perfect because that's like,
Hmm.
so the wind's in my face, and I'm like ready. It's 4 a.m. and deer are breezing by me, and I'm like, this is my day. It's gonna be great. And the sun came up. Well, gray light happened. I didn't see anything. Sun came up. I saw one deer at like 500 yards away, like through the brush, like just skitter off. And I sat there all day and I did not see another deer, um, which is, you know, um, one of my other loves is photography. Maybe my primary love is photography, and we can talk about that later. And um, I have endeavored to not be distracted in the stand with photos while I'm hunting. And so same thing with the phone. It's like the phone is in the pocket and like I can check it occasionally. What time is it or whatever. But like for the most part, I'm just like watching the woods do its thing. And so whatever it was, like 4 a.m. to 5:30 sit is a long day. It's a long day of
Yeah.
sitting. Um, and luckily I had like good weather that day. And so like, it's like a 55-degree day or something.
Hmm.
So I sat there all day, and I knew that that was my last day of hunting for the bow season. I have some like um, some photo gigs I have to do on the weekends in the coming days, and then like some other stuff. And so it was like, this is my opportunity. If I want to shoot anything with my bow prior to the 9 day, this is when I'm going to do it. And at like 5:15, a young buck, which is up here on the wall, he comes trotting down the trail, and he's like, what is he? He's a 7-pointer, little tiny basket, like this big. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'm gonna fill the freezer with this buck. It's gonna be great. I'm always concerned about CWD because like anytime I shoot an older deer, I'm finding that it's not anytime, but geez Louise, the number of positive CWD tests that we get is concerning.
Hmm.
And so he's coming straight towards me. He came out of the bedding where I thought he would be. He's coming down the trail, and there's like 15 minutes left of light, or maybe 20 minutes left of light. So like this is the shot. There's like no waiting for a bigger one. If I want to shoot one, I'm going to shoot one. And so he comes in, and I know that like this one oak tree is 18 yards, and he's coming inside of that tree, and I'm like, I got this guy. He's no problem at all. And I give him the old mep. No reaction whatsoever. Not at all. And I'm like, okay, I'll be a little bit more forceful. Meh. Again, nothing. And then I'm like, okay. So I have to like swing around, and he's about to get into a spot where I can't shoot. He would have been behind the tree. He would have caught my wind. It would have been bad. And I'm just like, all right, he's moving. I'm going to fire. And it went in like in between like the top of the scapula and the spine. So like higher than I wanted, but downward angle. He was
Hmm.
7 yards away. I mean, he was right there. And um, the way that it hit him, he just buckled and went straight down. The broadhead, like we talked about, the single bevel broadhead, like busted through everything and came out just under the shoulder, in between the sternum and and the opposite shoulder. And
Dang.
so that's the angle that he was at. I mean, just straight down. And he sort of like arched his back, fell to the ground, and then was kicking. And being like the person that I am, I got down and I was like, I'm gonna go. Like, should I put another arrow in him? And then I thought about like, I don't know, to just go and slit his throat. Like he's not going anywhere. Um, and so I went in and I grabbed him by the antlers, and he was still had a lot of energy left. I slit his throat, which is a gruesome thing to do to a living animal, as you probably
Hmm.
know, right? And I think in those moments, like I feel a lot of reverence for those animals. The proximity that I am to its life and then death, and like the very visceral reaction you have to that, I think is it's super healthy and but also like fills me with a lot of reverence for like all of it. That like this is a pursuit that is um, that helps me reflect on my own mortality or just the way the earth works, you know? So I cut its throat, and then I go back to pulling down all my gear. You know, I don't have like a lone wolf stand. Probably should, because the thing that I'm carrying in is like um, I don't know, it's like 25 pounds, I think, with all the sticks. And then I have all the straps, and then I have the bags, and I have my water,
Mm-hmm.
and I got, whatever else I bring into the woods, just like extra layers and so on and so forth. And so that pack is like 40 something pounds all in all. And I'm looking at this deer that's weighs more than I do. I weigh 150 pounds. And I'm like, okay, it's got to come in two stages. Like, I'm not going to be able to pull this guy out by myself, um, right away. And so after I pull down all my gear, I think I'm just going to like remove the head and the neck. Like, I'm going to cut it off and like strap it to my pack, like a Western hunter might do with like an elk, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I go to work and I, sever all the muscles around the spine, and I like twist the head off. Um, and while doing that, in all likelihood, my nice fixed blade Swedish made knife falls onto the ground, unbeknownst to myself.
Oh
Um,
no.
and so he's been gutted already. I didn't mention that, but I'd already gutted him. And so I have like one last strap, and I'm gonna strap his head to my back. I'll hike out, and then I'll come back with my jet sled. Is my thought. And so I kneel down just to put the head on the stand, and I have this hot pain in my leg, and I think, oh shit, that is a sharp stick. That's like my first thought. And then I
Mm-hmm.
like glance over at my quiver, because I think, like, did I drop an arrow? I had read an article on Meat Eater about a guy like stepping on a broadhead that looked exactly like the ones that I had. And then that's
Yeah.
my second thought. I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. God, I'm stupid. And like that happens instantly. And I sort of like push back from the what I find is the knife. I like push back from it, and it like leaves my leg, all in like one motion, just like push away from it. And I look down. My knife is like buried in the dirt with the blade up in the most absurd way that you could possibly ever imagine. I just, knelt down on this thing that, like, how did it fall that way? How is the grass
Mm-hmm.
strong enough? Like, how did I kneel on it? Like, of all the things, it's just so stupid. And so I immediately think, like, I took human anatomy class in college.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I have an artery over here? I don't know, but I'm squirting blood. Like, this is not good. This is not good. And you start to think about, like, okay, am I going to be okay? I don't know. I should put a tourniquet like on this, like, immediately. I have like an underlayer that I pull up like from my ankle all the way over the knee,
Mm-hmm.
and use that as like a bandage, like put some pressure on it, and then I get one of the straps from my pack, and I just like like pull the strap around my thigh, and I do it tightly, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna be all right. I think I'm gonna be all right. But talk about an adrenaline dump. You just kill a deer, and you slit its throat, and now you're bleeding, and all of this is just like flying through my head. I gotta make it all the way back to the car. Not only that, I
Mm-hmm.
should probably make it all the way back and then come back for the deer. And so all this is like flying through my head, and I get a call from Matt Geiger, and he's like, "Oh, hey, buddy, you shot something." I had texted him like right when I shot it, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "That's awesome. Bring it to my house." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, okay. I'll bring it there." Uh, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I cut myself really bad. And he's like, "Oh, okay, sure." Like, "Are you okay, buddy?" You know, like any like good friend, he starts giving me shit. Like, "You're such an
Yeah.
idiot," whatever. And I tell him, like, I'm gonna be there, but it's gonna take me a while. And I had tried to call my wife. She didn't answer, and I texted her like, "Hey, I love you very much. Thanks for always supporting me in all of these," you know, because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, either
Yeah.
like there's an artery there or there's not. And like if
Yep.
there is, like, what am I gonna do? Again, I'm 2 miles away from the car, and I am who knows how far away from civilization. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe Monroe would be like the nearest place, but I didn't even think about um, Monroe. I'm like, super far away. Another thing I consider is like, do I call an ambulance? What are they going to do? They're going to like bring an ambulance to the gate and then walk all the way here with what? Like it just seemed all like absurd to suggest that like that would be necessary. And then also
Hmm.
you stupid things like the acknowledgement that like this would be very expensive. Like if I have great health insurance and I know that I'm going to pay $40,000 out of pocket for this wound if I call to get like dragged out of here, which is like
Yep.
obviously you don't want to lose your life, but you're making all these like calculations in your head like, okay, I don't think it's fatal. I think it's just going to suck, and I don't want to like add insult to injury. Um and so all that goes through my head, and I decide like I'm gonna walk out of here. I'm gonna take this deer head out, and I'm gonna make it to the car, and I'm coming back for the deer. Like it's gonna happen. So I
And by
start.
this point, like, is the pain starting to set in as the adrenaline wears off, or did the adrenaline kind of just keep on going?
I feel like discomfort and almost like the initial pain happens, and then I'm like so worked up about all of these considerations that like I'm not in any worse pain than I'm in, um, I don't know, for a lot of other things that I've done in my life. And so
Hmm.
I'm just like, this is just painful. It sucks. And I like stand up for the first time and I'm like, okay, I can stand, and I'm just gonna kind of like start walking. So I make it like nearly to the car, and I'm starting to get like cramping in the leg and my knee is starting to feel pretty bad. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get to the car. I'm gonna charge my phone a little bit. I've already like given my location to my wife and my buddy, and digitally, of course. And then I'm gonna see how I feel. I drink some water. I listen to some house music, like turn on like just like I need to like get pumped up. I'm like,
Yeah.
like I got to get ready for this. And then I just strap the jet sled to my back, essentially, like with another ratchet strap. And I'm like, I'm going back for the deer. And when I get like another mile down the trail, like back from the car, I'm in a lot of pain, like
Hmm.
a significant amount of pain where I end up texting my buddy, I'm struggling. That's it. Nothing else needed to
Hmm.
be said. Like this is now a real struggle. And I I'm taking essentially like one normal step and then dragging my right leg, one normal step, dragging my right leg, one normal step, dragging my right leg. And I eventually make it back to the deer. And then you just get that like the feeling of like, I can't do this. Like I can like it's hard for me to drag a deer out over all the deadfall, through these drainages just when I'm able bodied, let
Hmm.
alone my leg is throbbing and I'm starting to feel funny. I don't know, like whether it's like shock or just like the pain is becoming so like visceral that like I can't quite um I don't know, I'm having a hard time facing emotionally like in a positive way the situation. I'm starting to
Hmm.
feel doubt. I'm starting to feel like oh shit, what was me? And one of the things that kept me going is like just the acknowledgement that like this is part of the game. Like you're in a blood sport. Like this is part of uh what you signed up for. You just killed this deer with an arrow and then slit its throat, and you're gonna bow out with like a little wound to your knee. Like, come on, man, what are you doing? If you don't want to hunt, then you shouldn't, or if you want to hunt, then you should be ready to accept the consequences of what that entails.
Hmm.
And so um giving myself a pep talk. I had talked to a brother-in-law about World War I the other day, and so for whatever reason, I'm thinking about like the number of people in history that have had it way worse than me and endured way worse things than I have ever even begun to endure, and how this is like such a minor inconvenience in the long run. And so with that sort of like in the back of my mind, I'm like, let's go, let's do this. And I get that deer in the sled and I start pulling, and man, does my leg fucking hurt. And it just is what it is. And I went down the trail, one foot after another, after another, after another. And I got to like the last hill, and I started like I don't like thinking like I can do it, and having like my body start to like almost give up on me. Like
Hmm.
I was feeling so much pain in my knee that like I couldn't put almost any weight on it, and so um, it just was that was so hard. I mean, it was incredibly physically taxing in that moment. And I get to the car, I feel a ton of relief, and I realize how am I going to lift this lifeless body into the back of the car with only one leg, like trying to squat
Mm-hmm.
down with one leg and do it. So I got to the car, and it took me a half hour of like trying to get the deer into the back of the car. And
Oh.
and I think that was like, there was a moment where I was like feeling pretty down, like, oh, I can't even get in the car. I'm such an idiot. Um, Obviously, ultimately I did. And and then I drove home left-footed. Well, I shouldn't say drove home. I drove to my buddy's house who was waiting there, and Matt Geiger, I pull up and he's like, "Oh, hey, buddy, how you doing?" And I can barely get out of the car. I'm like, "Oh," and I like sort of like slide along the car with my good leg and like hold my right leg. And he's like, "Oh, maybe you should go to the hospital." And I was like, "Yeah, I will. I will. Oh, I will." And so he takes the deer out of there, and I head home. I called my wife a few times. She's not answering. It is now like 12:30. Mind you, I shot
Mm-hmm.
this deer at like 5:15.
Right.
The drive is an hour and a half. So we're talking about a pretty long period of time that it took me to get the deer out of there. And I get to my house, and I'm like, I'm gonna wake up my wife, and I'm gonna have her drive me. And I go to get out of the car, and I can barely get out of the car again. It's just like it's all seized up. I'm in immense pain, and so I was like, screw it. I'm gonna drive myself to the hospital. And from there, it was like, you get in there, every nurse is like, "What did you do? What is wrong with you? Why didn't you just leave the deer? You can get meat at the store." And for each one of those people, like no one wants to hear. They're not really asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is something that I had to see through to the end. There was no, for me, there was no consideration like, oh, I'll just leave the deer. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
I would never think about it in a positive way ever again. And so, you know, luckily, despite the fact that like the ER doctor and the PA, as they were talking, they were like, "Oh, it'd be a miracle if he doesn't need knee surgery. Hopefully, he didn't sever. They could see into my joint. Like, hopefully, he didn't sever
Mm-hmm.
the little sac that uh, that like I guess encapsulates your knee, your meniscus and stuff. Because if he did,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get sepsis, and the LCL is almost assuredly like, yeah, you make that face." So I was the same thing. It was like, the PA told me, "We're going to give you a CAT scan, and if you sever this like sac that there's fluid in your knee, that's very bad."
Mm-hmm.
And my question was like, very bad, like I'll need surgery? And she's like, very bad, like you'll get sepsis, which didn't illuminate any new thing for me. I was like, and very bad, like I'll need what? And she's like, very bad, like you could die. Like, we can't treat infections in the knee. We just can't do it. And I thought, like, all the things in modern medicine, like I had no idea that
Right.
knee was like a vital location, that like if you get a sharp stick in your knee, that could kill you. And so there was like real gravity to the situation, but they'd also given me morphine. And so I felt very at ease with all of it. I'm like, well, I mean, I guess, sure. That's what happens.
I suppose it is what it is, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. As I'm like sort of drifting off. Um, but like, miraculously, I severed some muscles. I cut a tendon. I did not cut the LCL. I didn't puncture that knee sac. And so they were like, go to the doctor, the orthopedic surgeon on Monday, which would have been like 6 days afterwards. And he'll give you some additional tests. And if those come back fine, you don't need surgery. I didn't need surgery. And I'm like back to relative normal. I mean, there's like an occasional twinge in the knee. And if
Mm-hmm.
I down and do anything super extreme with like bending, it feels funny. But I mean, geez Louise, feel very, very fortunate for how the whole day played out in its totality.
Totally, dude. Holy smokes. That is one hell of a story. Like, man, I appreciate so much you sharing that story and just what was going through, like the thought process behind it. Like, I love that for whatever reason you had watched that or been talking with you said it was your brother about World War I
Right. Yeah.
documentaries or something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
like that was what you were able to like, okay, if I put it in perspective from that, because like what like I don't know, just weird shit. Like, what happens if you didn't have that conversation and then you're in that situation, you're having the same thing? I'm like, well, what, like, not to say like what would you draw from in that moment, but like, would you have done it? It's like just the crazy series of events. So your wife didn't answer at all while you were out there, or like when you
Right.
were calling her, or did she? You never got in touch with her?
No, I texted her like right when I shot it, and I was like, I shot a buck. I'll be home in a little bit. And she was like, awesome, great. I made, who knows, something delicious. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm hungry. I don't bring food out in the stand. I'll bring like a couple apples and that's it. And so I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, I'm ready to eat. Um, and that was like the last communication I had with her before she must have gone to bed at like 8:30. And that's like when I got back to the car. And so like there was no, well, I should say that like from where I shot the deer, there was service, and um, you get up on top of this ridge and there's service, and then most of the walk all the way to the car, there is very little service or no service.
Yep.
So, it's real spotty, and yeah, but yeah, I didn't talk to her, and hilariously, at least to me, I got an Uber driver home from the doctor or from the ER at like 5:30 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the Uber driver was like, "What happened to you?" And I told her the story, and she was like, "That's crazy." And she was like yelling and screaming like the whole ride back about, "That's man shit. That's real man shit," which was silly, right? Um, but she like opened the door. She's like, "Let me help you into your house." And so my wife wakes up to the sound of a woman yelling like, "Have a great morning. I hope your knee feels better." Um, and I'm like wearing whole leg immobilizer, because at first they thought knee surgery, and so like this whole
Yeah.
leg immobilizer, and I'm like a little bit buzzed up on morphine, and my wife comes out, she's like, "The fuck are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you?" And realizes like I'm on crutches, and it's almost 6 in the morning, and she's like, "Oh my gosh," and she like starts crying, like, "What is wrong? What happened?" So that was like she had gone to bed thinking like, "Oh, he shot a deer, like no big deal." And then I show up
Mm-hmm.
like 12 hours later in a cast. Um,
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. The shock value of like being woken up to that. If you're just like, well, I'm just going to go to bed early and
yeah,
he'll be home when he's home and I'll hear him come in and all that. And then like waking up like, oh, it's probably 11 o'clock. Like I've just been
yeah,
dozed off. Oh no, it's 5 a.m. The sun's about to come up or, whatever.
yeah,
Like who's this woman outside the car or outside my house? Like talking to my husband. What the hell?
yeah, yeah. It was a
That
shock.
is that is insane, dude. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. That is crazy. That dude, that honestly, that's without a doubt the best hunting story that's been told on this show, but that is right up there with one of the best hunting stories I've ever heard in my life. I think, dude, that was absolutely incredible. And we even got like I think even before, well, at least I learned about it before you did when I was chatting with Matt, but Matt made you a pretty badass little mount to commemorate that,
yeah,
didn't he?
yeah. Let me see. Can I take it off of this? Wow. I secured it up there really nicely. Yeah, it's really cool. It's
Nice.
like a piece of raw wood, and it's got the knife blade. My wife like gave him the knife blade unbeknownst to me, and so like the
Mhm.
knife blade mounted under it. My bloody ratchet strap that like got my own blood all over it is also on the Euro mount as well. And it says "Be a good cheer, Squire," which is from a Cormac McCarthy novel.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's essentially like suffering is part of the human condition, but misery is a choice, essentially. And like
Yep.
you're gonna encounter hardship in your life, and you can be down on yourself, and you can choose to be miserable, um, or you can choose the opposite. You can and choose to like try to roll with the punches and make the best of a situation. Not to say that you always have to be like toxically positive, but you should just recognize that like bad things are going to happen to you, and your response to them is your choice. And so, yeah, he made me an awesome mount, and I can look at it fondly all the time. Yeah.
That's so cool, dude. I love it. Well, dude, I appreciate the hell out of you sharing that story. I'm glad that the knee injury was non-fatal and that obviously didn't sepsis and all that sort of stuff, dude. I can't. What a like fever dream that had to be, just that ER visit. Like,
Dude.
my goodness. But dude, we've been going for like an hour and a half or so now. I don't want to take up your whole Sunday, but before we wrap up, man, where what do you have on the docket for 2026 in terms of outdoor pursuits, and where can folks go to get in touch with you if they want to see some of your photography or potentially give you some business?
Oh, business. That'd be awesome. So for 2026, I shot a bunch of deer this year.
Mhm.
Or last year. It was last year. I shot one deer this year, 2026. Um, so what am I going to do this year? I would like to I would like to continue to do what I always do, is just go outside, take pictures of everything. Um, I I'm lucky enough to like have had some of my work in like Whitetails Unlimited and Strong Magazine and where else? Meateater.com. I've had a couple photographs on.
Mhm.
Um, uh, some other stuff as well that is of fur, fish, and game. What else? Um, Outdoor news. Well, anyways, like, so doing stuff like that is really fun. I contribute to sharing the land as well. And so I'm looking to get out in the woods and take photos for sure. If you want to see any of my photos, you can follow or take a look on my Instagram, which is like not a um, it's not a business Instagram like necessarily. I'm just putting up photos of my family, the things I'm up to, and that's just my last name backwards, so it's OKFEJ. But yeah, 2026. I don't know. I'm probably going to try to catch some big smallmouth in the summertime. I
Hell yeah.
will. I'll usually have a rod in the water in the fall, trying to catch a lake sturgeon, and then you know, we'll probably eat some bluegill. We'll probably shoot some deer. Uh, Turkey hunting is something that I do unsuccessfully every year, so I'll probably do that again.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't
What
know.
season you got?
Uh, that's a great question. I think third
Third?
one this
Right
year.
on.
Yeah, yeah.
Right on.
I was too early last year. Last year I had like the A season, and
Mhm. It's
I don't
overhyped.
know. Yeah, I was like, yes, this is my year. 2 years ago, I had the very last season, and I shot a tom that was fanning in a field that I crawled through like 100 yards, like using it was late season, so like the grass had already started to grow maybe 12, 14 inches, and I
Yep.
army crawled from where I was sitting like within, I don't know, maybe it was 20 yards. And when I got up on my knees, two hens saw me, and he like swung around and I shot him, and I was like, oh yeah. So, I mean, you can be successful in any season, I guess, but
Totally. Dude,
yeah.
that's awesome, man. Well, dude, we're definitely gonna have to link up and harass some smallmouth and maybe chase down a couple turkeys if you
Dude,
got tags and stuff. That would be awesome.
yeah. You said you chased smallmouths on the Menominee River. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. That's
I did. Yeah.
we have a family cabin. Like my aunt and uncle have one on the Menominee River, and ooh, it's like I shouldn't even say it out loud, but like we sometimes get into smallmouths, and they are all 4.5 pounds and
Yep.
22 inches long, and they
Yep.
fight like crazy. And
Yep.
if if you're out there, you can. I mean, it's like world class. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
absolutely is, dude. It is yeah, we've talked with Tim and a couple other buddies about some of the magic of the Menominee, as well as even just the lower Wisconsin right outside our back door. But
yeah.
yeah, dude, we're definitely gonna have to link up and harass some fish, or maybe I don't know, maybe I'll ruin your life and I'll get you turned on to like trout fishing or something like that. Get you into
Don't
that
do
and
it. Don't do it.
throw you down that rabbit hole. We'll see. But dude,
Yeah.
this has been absolutely fantastic, man. I sincerely appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday to come on the show and share your story, and just for an awesome conversation, dude. I'm hoping this isn't the last time you come on the show, but man, I thoroughly enjoyed this one, dude.
Yeah, man. Me too. Thanks. I'd love to come back. We could talk about photography. I know you wanted to talk about um, that as a pursuit as well. So maybe we
Hmm.
could do that sometime too.
Yeah, totally, dude. We have a whole plethora of topics we can dive into. We'll
Indeed.
definitely have you back on. But
Cool.
sweet, dude. This has been awesome, man. Good luck in 2026, and we'll talk to you soon, dude.
Thanks, man.